Welcome once again to Pandora's Box. Heather, please. You're listening to Pandora's Box. Welcome back once again.
Oh yeah.
To your saviours, the saviour of your Wednesday evening. Yours truly, Mr. Calum Waiter is my name, in fact. Hebediah Penny Whistle. To the left of me, we have the golden child. He is Nathaniel Warren.
That's me.
Or as he is going to be known this week, Cello.
Cello.
To the right of me, we have right of me. To the right of me, we have Mr. Drusif Armstrong. That's Drew Jameson Benjamin Armstrong to you. But this week he's going to be known as everyone's favourite German instrument, Glockenspiel.
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 I like a good Glockenspiel.
You may be listening to us on DAB on Aspen Waite Radio. If so, what's up, everybody? You may be taking our visages in through the medium of YouTube, in which case...
Video.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Or you may be listening to us on Spotify, in which case, hello, everyone on Spotify. And thanks for tuning in.
Through the new medium.
The new medium, that's our latest baby, isn't it? Spotify is our latest baby. It's nice to be on Spotify.
Yeah.
Spotify.
So it's like, feels like you hit a mark when it's on Spotify. It's just like, there we go.
And it's good because we're going against the trend. Because, let's face it, obviously at the moment, one of the things in the media is like...
Getting off Spotify.
Some artists are like leaving Spotify. We're coming on Spotify.
We're filling the gap.
We're filling the gap, baby.
Rate us 5 stars as well.
Yeah.
If enough people rate us 5 stars, then it will show up on public. So
and obviously all other podcast platforms like TuneIn and Apple Music and all that, we're on there as well.
We're on all of it.
Look at that. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Neither did I. Neither did I. Glockenspiel teaches you something new every day.
Man of many facts.
So, we hope everyone out there is having a awesome day, whatever you're doing. This is just a quick reminder that Pandora's Box, it's obvious, obviously, if you listen on the radio station, but Pandora's Box is under the umbrella of Aspen Waite. So Aspen Waite is a business. Started off as an accountancy firm, very well respected and accomplished accountants, chartered accountants work within the company, but there's many departments nowadays: marketing, research and development, top quality business advice. So if you need any business advice, if you need your accounts done, need any marketing done, or think that you might qualify for some research and development tax credits, get in contact with Aspen Waite, trusted advisors, as it says on the mug. And they will sort out your life for you. But back to the content. How are you guys doing then, all right?
I'm good. I'm feeling warm.
Yeah.
I'm feeling nice.
Warm.
I'm feeling mean.
Warm on your exterior or warm inside all snuggly?
I'm wearing a coat, so...
Quite warm on the outside?
Yeah, a little bit.
But you feeling warm inside your soul as well?
Yeah, I feel
that's the main thing,
pretty happy, pretty good. Yeah,
I'd rather be freezing in a blizzard but be warm inside my soul than be cold in my heart but
not feeling hot
in a sauna. Yeah.
Oh man, saunas. I miss a sauna.
I love saunas. I wish
They're one of my favourite things ever.
One of the things I'm most jealous about my brother is that he lives like right next to the city and I live right in the middle.
Yeah, this is it. That's what Meg says. She used to live like 5 minutes from Nuffield Gym and Spa and used to go for a gym, a sauna and a steam room like every day pretty much.
Literally, like my brother will message me in the evening and I'm like there's like 2 towns I'm in the middle of. One is 8 miles away and the other is 12 miles away. So it's like and they're like just towns, let alone cities. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I am like in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm closer to more like deer than I am people. More troughs than
troughs and stools
than jacuzzis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be like, oh, what are you up to? He'll be like, what are you up to? And I'll be like, oh, I'll just put my kid to bed. Gonna have like a quick workout. Then I'm gonna like do some like household chores, put the washing on, do some dishes. I'm like, what are you up to? He's like, just had like a plunge pool. Now I'm going to get in the steam room. Then I'm going to have a swim for a bit. Then I'm going to have a sauna. I'm just like, you get. I'm like, I literally
That's
hate
what I
you.
felt like. We went to see Fairport Convention the other day, didn't we?
We went to Bath. And Bath Forum. Lovely venue, by the way.
Lovely venue. And it's it. We went to a place called Smokehouse Barbecue before for some like barbecued rib and stuff like that and big burgers.
Such a nice big burger.
Oh, so good. Bit of a Blue Moon as well. Blue Moon pint.
I love Blue Moon.
Nice beer on tap. Nice beer on tap. That's always good. Awesome some concert in Bath Forum, and then just walking around the town after. Let's go get a Schwartz burger
around the city. Yeah,
but that's just
Schwartz Bros burger. Yeah, and also shout out Blue Moon, shout out Schwartz Bros.
Yeah, but it's
what
just
a good burg.
to be able to just walk out and just get that stuff is like such a novelty for me. Like,
man, me and you both. But I mean, at least you sort of like live in town. So I live like in
it's a little bit. At least we got like Shan's chicken in here and the green olive or something. But it's definitely nothing on Schwartz Bro burger.
Yeah, I'd have to like go and like find a chicken somewhere in a field.
Yeah,
just to start if I wanted to get some chicken, like randomly late at night. But
I do hate steam rooms.
Do you?
Yeah,
I love.
Do you know, I'm way too like. I think I'm way too talkative. So I'd like get in the steam room and be like, hello. And then I have to leave because I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Things like that, you remind me so much of your brother. Like, obviously, like, for those that don't know, Zousoir the Gold is Cello's oldest brother, who's going to be actually on the Dark Dell next week. He's coming back. It'll be the first time he's been co-hosting in a couple of months, so that'd be cool. As old Glockenspieler's having some much needed rest.
Yeah, we're having a sordid love affair in Devon. Not a love affair, but just a love.
Yeah, a sordid weekend with his other half.
Weekend with the other
full
half,
of sexual extravagance.
Oh, lovely.
You know,
Dartington Hall Estate.
Yeah. So watch out, Dartington. But yeah, you're like just the sort of thing I can imagine Josh saying. Which I can just imagine him just randomly being like, I hate steam rooms.
I do hate them.
I could just imagine like one of those things like, I love saunas and I love steam rooms, and I could just imagine Josh going, I hate steam rooms.
It was really weird. It was really weird being at Butterfield Festival, and the first time I actually went into it was like the naked sauna park.
The naked communal
genderless park thing.
Yeah.
So you just walk through the gates and there's like, get all your kit off, and there's like little changing rooms that are just like in little yurts, and you put all your stuff in there.
Yeah.
And then it's literally there's a fire in the middle of this enclosure that you can just sit round and everything and like kind of warm up after you've had a shower and that after the sauna. And then just a big yurt on that side, and that's like the silent sauna, and then the big yurt on that side, and that's that's like the noise sauna where you can chat and stuff like that. And it's crazy, like you go in and it's all completely dark, but like only the light that's coming from the wood burner that you tip thing off, like to have the thing. But on that one, it is literally like people are singing songs in there, and everyone's having a chat.
Say everyone's just
like,
naked?
Yeah, everyone's just completely naked, and it's like, and everyone's like,
and obviously it's a unisex. It's unisex.
Yeah. So there's boobs, widgers flying around everywhere, and like, but I loved it at first. I'm quite a shy little lad, you know, like, or have been known to
debatable.
Be. Yeah, like I wouldn't just get my kit off in front of everyone.
What you need is a bit of encouragement.
Yeah, exactly.
You can be for a minute.
Yeah,
but the next thing you know,
raring to go.
Yeah.
But that was like it then.
yeah, definitely.
But that was it in that situation. I was like, this is going to be so weird. But then all of a sudden, like, where everyone is doing it, and it literally no. Like, where everyone is just naked, it goes from like being something that's weird in your head to just like how actual normal is this? There's actually just nothing weird about it in the slightest. In fact, it was so like, it was almost like cathartic or something, just to be sitting with all these just naked people.
Gets
like
rid of the taboo.
And it was just like, it was cool. Like, even sitting down, you think, oh, those sweaty people, I wouldn't want any, like, you know, when you're sitting on this thing and you kind of like, you feel an arm on you and just like that, and it's not weird. It's like, yeah, this is what it is to be human, really. Like we've like gone away from this, and think about like the way the Romans used to be and stuff. It always used to be the Greeks. It must have been much more free and not as taboo to be naked. Like I reckon.
I think that even the word gymnasium means something like naked room.
Oh really? No, I love etymology.
Yeah. Would you do me a favour, young cello? Just look up the origin of the word gymnasium. I know it means something like that, like room of naked people or something like that. Because obviously back in the ancient Greek days, like all the Olympics and everything like that, everyone would be completely naked.
Yeah,
and, you know, so
from gymnasium, exercise naked.
Gymnasium, obviously.
No.
So Greek.
So no.
so via Latin from Greek gymnasium.
Sorry.
From gymnasium, which is exercise naked. From gymnos, which is naked.
Yeah.
Right.
Gymnos naked, gymnasium exercise naked.
Right. See, I knew it was something like that. Like I knew it was like that naked was the basic.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's so funny that obviously like nowadays to this day, we call them gyms. Or if you want to be fancy or long-winded, gymnasium. You can still call it a gymnasium. But let's face it, we just call it gyms. But it's so funny that to this day we call it a gym.
Yeah.
But like obviously
naked.
we're not technically naked nowadays. Like, imagine if you just walked into a gym starkers and then like one of the PTs or the manager came up and they're like, excuse me, can you leave? What the hell are you doing? And you'd be like, this is a gym, isn't it? And you'd be like, yeah, look up the meaning of the word, mate.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, oh, actually, I guess in a weird way, fair enough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still need to put some clothes on and leave.
Do you even know what gym means?
Yeah. You idiot. Yeah. But I remember always thinking that was like a funny little fact in the back of my head, just because we still call it a gym now.
Yeah.
I want to make it an effort to know more about like the origins of words and stuff, because it is so interesting. And like we were saying about Achilles heel, you know, I watched Troy the other day again, and it was like, you know, the origin of the Achilles heel. Yeah,
shout out to Bernard, our crazy old tax expert who works. Who's like the tax expert in AW. Who's literally, they work above us in this room. But he's a very intelligent man. Has been in Mastermind in the UK and stuff. And he's just like one of those guys that knows a lot of stuff. And we were having a chat with him, weren't we, about etymology, which is just about like the meaning and origin of words. Etymology. If you don't know what that means, if you don't know what that word means, you do now.
I wonder where that came from. Ooh. I wonder what's the etymology of etymology.
Let's look it up. I'm
going to have to look that up.
Let's look it up. But yeah, because Drew was saying to me the other day, as he said before we went to go see that gig in Bath on Saturday night, he was saying I'd watched Troy, you know, the movie with Brad Pitt and Eric Bana and a young Orlando Bloom and stuff, and Sean Bean's in it actually.
Full baby face. Yeah, he's
anything
man. I forgot he was in it, and I was like, hey, Shawnee.
Yeah, anything with Sean Bean. Boo-doo. Anything with Sean Bean's in it is good, obviously. Like, and then we just randomly got onto the topic of like Achilles heel, you know. So like we all obviously to this day, like even in medicine, you refer to it as your Achilles heel. There's obviously also the separate meaning, which means like, you know, like if you would say like that woman is that man's Achilles heel, you know. It's like it means it's his weakness, you know, because of obviously the stories of Achilles is that it's like the only part of his body that's vulnerable, because the rest of him is like invincible essentially, as is well portrayed in the movie. You know, like Achilles can just destroy anybody in a battle. Even Hector of Troy, who was like in his own right considered one of the best warriors of the planet. Even
in that part, he looked like he just does it quite easily. Yeah, you know,
just everything was just enhanced almost like 50 times. Like, well, not 50 times, like 50%. I was going to say, like he was 50% faster, 50% more accurate, 50% stronger in his blows. Do you know what I mean? It was just like they were similar fighters. But just Achilles was just better at everything. Yeah. Just everything. It was quite sad though, wasn't it? I thought it was a real sad thing.
Like when I knew what was happening because I knew what was going to happen. But I think even the way that they build it up, it's like, you know what's going to happen. Like even like Meg, she'd never seen it before, but she knew what was going to happen. She was like, oh no, he's going to die now.
But it was like all foul play, wasn't it? In terms of like Achilles thought that... What was it? Achilles thought that Hector had like killed his brother,
killed his cousin, because his cousin had dressed up as Achilles in Achilles' armor and like led the regiment into battle when Achilles said don't he said to his like regiment of like people, like, don't do it, but they all dressed up. He dressed up as Achilles and led all of his troops into battle, and then just got murked by Hector like pretty easily because he's like, and he thought he'd killed Achilles, and they literally just took the helmet off and he's like, oh, and then Achilles was like,
Achilles went full on rage,
just dragged his body back to the waters on the back of his chariot.
And he was not happy. That's a good movie though, isn't it?
Yeah, epic movie. I want more movies like that in my life.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Great movie.
And like and what Bernard said to us as well. Bernadette about Achilles, like, which I didn't realise. The reason that it was supposed to be that his heel was the weakness is when his mum dipped him in the waters. That it was like.
So I can't remember if it was Zeus or Hera, but one of the Greek gods. Because obviously in like with Hercules,
it was his mother, right? I want to say.
No,
God was his mother.
No. Achilles' mother was a woman, but as is common in Greek mythology, Zeus would often come down to earth under the disguise of a man, and he would sleep with a mortal woman, and that's how Hercules was born. That's how people like Achilles was born. There's a couple of others as well. A lot of these sort of Greek.
How I was born.
And yes, how Drew was born, and they're called demigods. So they're not as powerful as gods, but they are like supernaturally powerful. Yeah, and you see that with Hercules and Achilles.
So Thetis was the person who dipped him in the
that was
river
his mother,
Styx, which was his mother.
Yeah. So Zeus slept with Thetis, a mortal woman, and then I think I can't remember if it was him or Hera, but they said that he had to be dipped in the river, and that if he would be dipped, that he would if he would be dipped,
you'll be blessed.
if he was dipped like a nice little garlic and herb dip, that he would basically be immortal. Well, not immortal, invincible is a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
But obviously, there was a small part of him that was held out of the water where she had to hold him by his ankle. And where she was holding it was like his thumb was over his Achilles, and that's so it didn't get wet. And as a result, that's why that was his weakness. That's why, like any other part of him, would have remained unvanquished. Invictus Mania.
Invictus Mania.
But because obviously Hector was destroyed, Paris, who was Hector's little brother, which is ironic as well, because Hector was the great warrior and Paris was always sort of seen as the lover boy, as obviously played by Orlando Bloom. But he was a very good archer. And he shot Achilles in his heel, and that was the downfall of Achilles.
You might say, he's a really good archer, but it was almost like a mistake, wasn't it? Like he wasn't aiming for
he wasn't aiming for
his
him.
heel.
I can't.
It's a bit of a weird place to aim.
It's been a long time since I've either read the story or watched the film, so I can't remember exactly what was going on, like how he ended up hitting him in the heel. Yeah,
Achilles was knelt down, and he'd seen that, because he kind of fell in love with the bird, the lady who was actually Orlando Bloom's cousin.
Yes,
in it, and so they're kind of kneeling down and like facing each other, like, oh yeah,
they're going. That's Drew's mating call.
He was lying down like.
Watch out, ladies! If Drew ever does that, you know what's happening.
What's it called? Like a kind of, if you think of it, a squat. But not a squat, like a lunge. A lunge.
He was lunging towards her.
It was like a both knees bent lunge with your knee on the floor.
Don't get me excited.
And then that was it. And the back leg was sticking out on the lunge.
Oh, baby.
And then Achilles right in the heel.
Right in the heel, baby.
Paris got that. Yeah.
It is. I mean, in terms of common sense, though, even though it wouldn't be like necessarily like a place that you would traditionally aim for if you had a bow. It's a great thing to do, though, because if you think about, like, what do you want to do? If you're battling somebody, right, you either want to kill them or incapacitate them as fast as possible.
Do you immobilize them?
If you damage the tendon, I mean, then that person cannot walk.
Do you remember that scene in Last Kingdom? And like where
when Uhtred slashes Ubba's Achilles tendons, both of them, he's just like like falls to his knees. That's epic.
But like perfect example of that.
And let's face it as well, because obviously Ubba was like a big brutish man, wasn't he? Like very tall, like relied on his brute strength and stuff. So he did have Uhtred on the back foot just through his sheer ferocity a lot. But it's almost as well. What I like about that is like. Fight IQ, man. As they call it, fight IQ. So it's like Uhtred was on the floor at the time, and traditionally you almost think, well, like, if you've got this giant guy wielding an axe above you, it's like, and you're like on the floor, what can you do? But obviously, slice someone's Achilles heels, then it's almost like no matter how big and strong and ferocious you are physically incapacitated.
Heel boy.
Yeah, you are literally incapacitated. Like nobody can walk. With a sliced Achilles tendon.
Oh,
even the imagine of it, it's one of those things that makes you go,
makes my,
you know what I mean? Like,
makes my,
makes you, I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing then.
In a bad way.
Not in like a you're an extreme sadist sort of way. But yeah, like, I want to do a quick shout out, obviously, to Fairport Convention. So that was the band that me and Glockenspiel went and watched on Saturday night in Bath. So it was it's their 55th anniversary of their of them founding Fairport, and so they came out in 1966. So my old man, who is in his early 60s now, was 6 when they founded it. It was quite hilarious, wasn't it? Because we were like a lot, like majority of people there were like
golden oldies. Yeah. So
we were like rocking. Well, we're rocking out as much as you can when you're sat down, because we didn't want to like start getting up. Although I was tempted at certain points. Do you know what I mean? I almost like wished there was an area where you could get a bit more interactive. Yeah. But the most I could do was sort of like headbang a little bit and tap my foot. But yeah, it was great anyway to see such like a band with such longevity. Really interesting, quirky, cool musicians. Like their violinist was just like a really crazy other guy, wasn't he?
What was his top? Pretty Damn Cosmic.
Pretty Damn. He had just a t-shirt called Pretty, and it just said Pretty Damn Cosmic, and he had sort of like a long ponytail and glass. I said to Drew, I was like, that's what you're going to be like in like 50, in like 40 years or whatever, because he was just like this proper eccentric, funny guy. But he was like shredding on his violin.
Yeah,
you could tell he was like.
I was loving that.
And for as me and Glockenspiel said to each other at the time, for anybody that's ever actually picked up a violin, even as somebody
Very
that
hard
knows how to play
instrument.
another instrument and play, it's you almost just think, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can play guitar or something and then you try and play piano, you can sort of like figure stuff out.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes of like messing around, you're like, oh, okay, that's a C. Okay, I can do some like basic stuff now. You can't do that on a violin.
No, it's like, it's hard, isn't it?
Because it's like one of those things that it's like you need to develop the muscle memory.
Yeah.
You know, you need to. There's something about the way, just the intricacies of how
and
it's
also
played.
playing with a bow.
Yeah.
Like the actual, like the like with your hands, like doing the bow movement plus the movement.
That's
it's
sort of what I mean, but you obviously going into more depth. Yeah.
We had to learn how to play a violin in primary school. That was like one of our things.
You had to?
Yeah.
What? So you can actually play a bit?
Probably not.
I was gonna say it's very hard.
In primary school, don't forget.
Yeah.
So it was probably very basic. It was probably just putting it up to your chin and going like that.
But one thing I will say, even that, because if you can't play violin, it's hard to even make the stroke sound good. You know, like if you can't play well, it's going to go like
yeah.
Whereas obviously you want it to be like you know, like, which is one of the cool things about that guy, wasn't it? He was just shredding on it. There was what was it? There was one song and it was like an instrumental, and it was just amazing. He was just
so
full
good.
on. It was like exactly the same. I was saying it was like watching Zakk Wylde. If you know who Zakk Wylde is, he's like the longtime guitarist of like Ozzy Osbourne. He's also got a band called Black Label Society, but he's known as one of like the best rock/metal guitarists alive. It was just like watching Zakk do a shredding solo for like 5 minutes, like on stage or something. But like just on the violin, it was exactly the same feel. Just
and I noticed a lot of songs as well. It's like he knew when to hold back on and like not even play in some moments, and was just like loving it on stage, just kind of like rocking out. But then he would like come in and it was like building up, and he had effects and things, but he'd only use those effects and those delays at like certain points of the song, and like that's having that restraint that we talk about.
Great restraint control. Yeah, like knowing when to use things and when not to. Like even like so there's this song they do called Hiring Fair, which was their penultimate track of the night, and like the violin in that was more just sort of beautiful. He wasn't shredding. It wasn't that. It was just like, I just remember there's that bit and it's like na 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 na. But it was just like, it's just so beautiful. You know what I mean? Just that extra like nice little layer of that violin. It's like so cool. Yeah, go listen to Hiring Fair. Go check out Hiring Fair. And check out like go on YouTube and find like a live version or something anyway. But it's just, they were just for a bit of background as well. They were like the band. There was basically like a folk rock revolution in the 60s in the UK. And at the time, folk music hadn't really charted in like a long time. In like decades. You know, at the time it was all like disco music and like rock and roll was like the big thing. Obviously in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, there was a lot of rock and roll. There was lots of bluesy stuff, and there was a lot of like disco stuff. That was the stuff that was mainly, you think about all like the big bands of the 60s, whether it was like the Beatles, the Kinks, and then you also had people like Diana Ross, or like Donna Summer. People like that. It's very, very disco-y, rock and rolly, bluesy, and then all of a sudden Fairport came out, and they had a real nice mixture of original music and their takes of like old traditional British folk songs. And it was interesting as well because it's very easy, say for me as a folk music enthusiast, to go online and find chords and scriptures for all the ancient folk songs. But to be fair to them, they had to like almost like work for it. For them, it was almost like, imagine like in Lord of the Rings when the hobbits go on like an adventure.
Find the tomes.
I can't remember what county it is, but I want to say maybe it was like Salisbury. But anyway, there's this little library out in the middle of the countryside somewhere in this county in England. And it's like the Library of Folk Music or something like that. And they literally would just go there and they would rent out a house nearby while they were writing their albums, and they would like sit there looking through old scriptures, and there'd be like old newspaper articles from like 400 years ago and stuff like that. And then in like a newspaper article, they would find like randomly like the lyrics to like a folk song that was written, that was like some unknown written by some unknown bard who themselves wrote the song 300 years before like it was even published in the, and it had gone down through hearsay until some random journalists that worked for some newspaper somewhere in Britain would then write it down in some scripture, and then it was all compiled in this library of folk music.
Yeah.
So they would have to find it, and in some cases there weren't even any chords to it, so they would almost like arrange the music themselves, but then with these original lyrics. In other cases there was music that went along with it. But I mean, nowadays in the folk scene, I mean, there's lots of folk artists, people like Down the Bar, that do covers like Matty Groves and songs like that. But it was really Fairport that really kicked that off. And then, you know, they had some issues with the band. There was car crashes and some deaths and stuff. One of the members left and founded another really famous and well-respected folk rock band in Britain called Steel Eye Span. I think also one of the members had something to do with the band Pentangle. Maybe he founded the band Pentangle, maybe an old member of Fairport Convention. That's ringing a bell in my head anyway. But Pentangle, Steel Eye Span, Fairport Convention, they're all sort of like the biggest folk rock bands of that scene. Also this band called Fotheringay. But yeah, which was sort of ran by Sandy Denny, who was originally the lead singer of Fairport Convention. She passed away decades ago now. I think she might have died of like cancer or something, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, shout out to Fairport. It was cool to see, as I said, I mean, these guys are in their 70s now. But, you know, they were like, as I said, they were rocking out on stage, weren't they? And it's just like amazing to see artists with that longevity. Like, how can you not respect that? So that was really cool. And as I said, we went to Bath Forum, really nice venue. Left and it was like tipping down with rain, wasn't it? And it was like galing, like how like just winds howling. And then like me and Drew just like were not prepared for it. Just like walking through the city centre in like without any coats or anything. There was just like women running around, weren't there? Obviously like scantily clad, like running around like through the rain. So that was like pretty funny.
Crazy.
Had to like check that a couple of people were okay after.
Oh, like, a few people fell over.
A couple of total wipeouts.
Yeah.
So it was like, there was literally I think like two women that just absolutely like just totally
Hit the deck. Yeah.
And I went over and I was like, "Are you okay?" And they're just like, yeah. I was like, good.
Just want to say as well, shout out to that artist we saw as well called Luke Jackson.
Luke Jackson.
He was epic. So it's really cool. Like they took out a younger artist. Like you thought, well, we both thought he was about our age, like in his 30s and that. But he was 27, and I've checked out a bit of his music since, and he incredible voice. Like the kind of power he had in his voice, but also his technique and everything. It was just like whoa.
His range, and his
control of how he would do stuff and
control,
really
range, and sustain. That's what the main things I was, you know, he could hold a note. He had incredible range, and also one of the things I really took away from him was he had such a big sound for essentially like a one-man band. And I say like a one-man band because, like, you know, it was almost going over into that one-man band territory because he was
kick drum behind him and stuff as well.
He had a kick drum, and he was using every sort of technique at his ability, wasn't he? In terms of, like, you know, he was using his voice and his guitar in a way that was making as many different sounds as possible. So he had a massive sound, even though it was just one guy with a guitar and a kick drum. He had a massive sound.
Yeah, totally.
And I thought, fair shout. Because, you know, and there's nothing wrong with this at all, but, you know, a lot of the times when it's just like somebody just singing and playing a guitar, it sounds like just one person singing. You know, it doesn't have the depth of a band, of like a 3 or 4 or a 5 piece band. Whereas he had a lot of depth.
I think that's so cool when it's like that. I know, or even when instruments be used as other instruments. Yeah, it almost reminds me of a song, my favourite song, "Runaway" by Kanye West. But at the end, there's like a 3-minute section where he basically auto-tunes his voice, like humming and stuff, to the point where it just sounds like an electric guitar. But it's like the most emotional part of the song.
Really?
Even though
do you shed a tear?
I probably have.
Yeah?
Probably.
No, he's not afraid to admit. Not afraid to admit.
But there's the way he uses it.
Yeah.
Without any vocals, any lyrics, anything like that. Well, I guess it is vocal. But without any lyrics, and you can still feel the emotion and the desperation in it. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, man. Fair shout. Yeah, no, yeah. That guy Luke Jackson, though, he was really impressive. So if Luke Jackson ever hears this, Shout out Luke Jackson. He was cool, wasn't he? He was from Canterbury.
Canterbury, yes.
Yeah, he was from Canterbury. Obviously.
He was very good at
famous part of the UK because of the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah, and he was good at his talking in between songs, like explaining what the song was about and stuff, and that gave it more context when he played it, which I really enjoyed as well.
And even though I thought his style wasn't necessarily the most traditional folk style in terms of actually how his song sounded, it was very traditional folk in terms of everything was a story.
Yes.
And he was amazing actually at doing that. So every song would flow into another, but in a natural, even though, you know, they're completely different stories, every single one, but they would make them flow and everyone would have a unique story and they were told like a story. And that's one of the things that I personally love about folk music.
Yeah,
you know? And sometimes you can take morals of the story away or it's just giving you a lesson or making you think about a specific topic to almost like shine a spotlight on that topic and make you almost like sit and think about that. You know, I love that.
Yeah.
And we're going to listen to another track here. This is a nice little song to contemplate life to. This is Strong by London Grammar. Stick around. We've got loads and more. A plethora, I should say. A plethora of topics, subjects and
what's popping out the box.
Exactly. That was Strong by London Grammar. You are listening to Pandora's Box on Aspen Waite Radio. I'm your host as always. Today in the studio we have cello.
Hey yo, what's up everybody?
And everybody's favourite German instrument, Glockenspiel. Have either of you two heard of the Bombardment of CopenHagen?
No, but it sounds like a bombing of some sort.
A bombardment, you could say. It sounds a little bit like a bombardment. So, the bombardment of Copenhagen was an assault on the Danish capital by the British Empire that took place between the 16th of August and the 5th of September, 1807.
Long old time ago.
It was a tactical move by the Brits. Because
tactical chunder.
It was a tactical chunder. It was a tactical.
Why that remind me of that? I don't know.
I like how you just like literally just tittered to yourself as well, like tactical chunder. Yeah, it was a tactical move by the British Empire because at the time the Danish had a very extensive and decent fleet, naval fleet, and at the time it was in the middle of the Napoleonic War. So obviously, you know, Britain and France were going toe to toe.
And is this when they destroyed all the ships?
This is different. You're thinking about something that happened in the Second World War with France.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Similar reason though. So the Danes were neutral at the time, but there was a lot of push by Napoleon to essentially almost like try and bully the Danish into joining the war on Napoleon's side.
Right.
And obviously the British were concerned about this because where Denmark is situated, obviously compared to Britain, it leaves Britain very vulnerable. And obviously the Danes themselves, if you go back, 800 years earlier, 8, 9, 10, 100 years earlier, the Danes, as in like the Viking Danes, obviously used this to great advantage when they used to raid and attack England. So as almost like a preemptive strike, the British naval fleet decided that they would go to Denmark and just fire upon all of the Danish warships and also upon Copenhagen and just sank every single ship they had. They sent out a massive naval fleet. Obviously, the British at the time were known to have, probably the greatest, if not one of the greatest navies in the world. That would be contested amongst, the Spanish, the Dutch had a very good one as well, the French, the Portuguese, and the Danes had very good fleets. So, but the British had one of the best ones. But obviously, they were very worried about Denmark joining the war on Napoleon's side. So they made the tactical decision and they sunk all the ships. As a result, Denmark did join the war on Napoleon's side. This is the only downside, but they literally couldn't do anything.
Didn't have any ships to do anything.
Because, you don't build a warship overnight. They did not have the time.
Do you reckon they did it more for, like, the protection of, obviously it had already happened?
Imagine if, that's outright war. If somebody sails to your lands
totally,
and just sinks every single ship in your harbour, your entire naval fleet, and is like bombarding your capital city with like cannons, then that's a pretty blatant act of war, isn't it? Isn't it? But you know, after that happened, I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think that there were even ever any altercations between the British and the Danes after that. I think it was almost like a symbolic thing that the Danish joined Napoleon and the French side. But as I said, the Danes couldn't do anything. But one almost like really interesting piece of trivia, which is almost like, I think is like the best thing to take away, which I just think is really fascinating from this, is after the bombardment of Copenhagen, after the defeat and the loss of all the ships, the Danes responded by planting 90,000 trees, with the idea being that when the trees were fully grown, they could finally restore all of their warships. Which is a hilarious idea, because obviously, you know, technology works so fast nowadays. You wouldn't obviously build a warship out of wood the same way they did back then. But it was just hilarious that in 2007, the Danish Nature Agency, which was the successor to what was originally known as the Royal Forester, which was like played a very important role, because obviously timber back in the day was so crucial for like the development of like muskets, ships, so much more crucial than it is today, because obviously nowadays we more use metal for all of those things. But the Danish Nature Agency informed the Danish Ministry of Defence in 2007 that the trees were finally ready. Which I just think is like a hilarious like bit of trivia. Do you know what I mean?
They should like make one amazing ship out of like just for like
out of 90,000 trees.
No, I mean like,
the most massive ship like just shows up.
Then just sail up to England.
Yeah, but you don't have to,
symbolically, so they actually still use it for a ship.
That would be a good shout actually.
And then like you could even have it as like a like not even one that sails, but just like a monument, you know.
And just for lols, like almost just like sail up and down the Thames. Just as almost like a watch out, Brits.
Good tourism.
Yeah,
get people coming in.
I think that'd be a good idea, but I just almost think that's like hilarious. Obviously, that happened, in like 1807, and then literally 200 years later, they were like,
"Oh my god,
we're ready to rebuild the fleet now. If you want to like go and get your own back on the Brits." Do you know what I mean? That was so funny. That's a good one, isn't it?
So that was the fact that they officially like said that it was ready to like the
Ministry of Defence and everything. It's like,
we better say that now,
Oh yeah, that's good, isn't it?
200 years.
Yeah, I guess a tree ain't gonna grow overnight, is it?
Yeah.
And I suppose back then you wouldn't think that technology would have moved so fast. Like 200 years, probably they thought they would still be using.
Well, ships. I guess 200 years before that, they would have been using wooden ships.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like technology went only so far for thousands of years almost. Like,
and also, in theory, the whole idea of like a metal ship doesn't sound on paper. It doesn't sound like it's very like
not very buoyant.
No, you'd think like a metal ship would just sink.
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
Yeah,
obviously.
Sure.
So it's crazy nowadays when you just see these massive like warships that are just like metal warships.
Absolutely huge ones, crazy. Like cruise liners. I always see like when I was on in Croatia, that like there was a lot of ports and massive cruise liners were coming into these ports.
Oh, some of them are gigantic.
Oh my god, I'd never seen anything like it in my life. Like I'd never seen one in the flesh that big.
Well, I know that obviously the Titanic was the biggest ship had ever been built in its day. When was that? Back in like I want to say like
1912.
Was it 1912? Was
1912.
it? Oh, I love that. That's just off the top of your head, mate.
Look at me. Watch me be wrong now.
Oh, cello. No, that does sound about right.
I think it's 1912.
I was going to say was it 1910, but I mean the fact that you're so certain.
Inspector Calls.
I know. Did it either set sail or it sank on April 10th? I know that. It either set sail or sank on April 10th. I don't know why I remember that.
As well.
I don't know why I remember that, but it either set sail or it sank on April 10th. But I can't remember exactly the year that it was.
15th of April, 1912.
Was that when it sank?
That was when it sank.
Yeah, so it set sail on the 10th of April.
Wow.
Nice from memory, man. I like that nice little knowledge.
Yeah. Where'd that come from then? Did you just
Inspector Calls.
Ah.
But I think it's like a play, and then throughout school, we'd have done stuff on Titanic and stuff. Yeah. Which is why I remember.
Yeah, at the time that was the biggest ship that ever been built, but nowadays there are cruise liners that like dwarf the Titanic.
That's crazy, isn't
it? Way bigger. Yeah. I think there's one. I think it's like, is it called the Oceanic? I think
that sounds about right.
I think that might be the biggest ship arrive nowadays.
Would you ever go on a cruise?
It's the biggest ship alive. That's the biggest ship around.
Would you ever go on a cruise?
I have been, mate.
Have you?
Yeah. We'll talk about that after the break. This is Gravity by a Perfect Circle. Stick around, baby.
Dude, have you guys heard about that new Foo Fighters movie coming out?
Yes.
Foo Fighters movie?
Yeah, there's a Foo Fighters movie.
No.
Yeah, apparently it's like a comedy.
Cool.
A comedy movie. Isn't it something to do with like the recording studio they're in is like owned
Haunted.
by the devil or something? Yeah,
Haunted or something.
Haunted, something like that,
they're like making a new album or
it's
something.
either Haunted or it's like owned by the devil or something weird like that.
It's like a one night only thing.
Yeah.
I think they might be showing it like in Bridgewater as well.
Oh, I would
we'll have to go to that.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd quite like to go see it.
Yeah.
Would be cool, definitely.
Maybe we have a little date night.
Go to what's its face again?
Yeah.
You know,
get some chicken.
Yeah, that's it. Fried tucks. Fried chucks.
Extra hot, baby.
God, no way. No way.
That was Call Me a Little Sunshine by Ghost. That was Ghost's brand new track. Shout out to Ghost. I'm loving that track. Hooks aplenty. You were listening to Pandora's Box. Before that last track, there was Metallica with a cover of Bob Seger's Immortal track, Turn the Page. I absolutely love Turn the Page. It's like the sort of track you want to listen to. You're feeling soulful. You're driving down the road late at night. It's raining. You know, you put on Turn the Page extra loud.
Emotive.
Yeah, contemplate the world, your life. Listen to Turn the Page. Oh, baby. I almost want to do that right now. You said that there was something you wanted to speak about, Mr.
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Cello.
had like a question for you guys, and this isn't my daily question or my weekly question.
That's still to come.
This is just another thing I've been thinking about. So we were talking about earlier when we were walking up here, that my mum's like a teacher and she does a lot of work, and I was thinking, like, is all the planning worth it and everything? And I got to thinking, and I was thinking of some of the lessons that I remember through school. Right. That were like real interesting. Like, I remember, for instance, one in primary school, we got in and all the teachers like were pretending to be devastated, and the mission was that someone had come in and stolen like a Buddha statue from the school, and all the kids, we must have been like year 4, all the kids had to go around and like do an investigation to find out who it was who stole the Buddha statue. And it was like that remained in my mind because it was such like a cool lesson. I was just wondering if you guys had any like lessons in your mind that stick out and you can really remember being like, that was cool.
What, specifically from school? Or?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No. Like any interesting one.
I think school was better in your time, man. Next generation on from us, I reckon that they made more of an effort.
You reckon? Was there literally nothing like that?
Like what? No, not really. I can't think, and certainly not off the top of my head. I can't think of anything like that.
We had like just another one that comes to mind. Being in geography in like year 8, year 9.
Yeah.
And everyone would get put to a different table at the start of the lesson. This was a sick lesson. And you would be assigned a country or a continent. Sorry, so someone would be Africa. Right. Someone would be. Oh no, it was a country because it was like USA, right, Nigeria,
Uganda, etc.
Stuff, just random countries.
Norway.
And based off what your country was, would base off your resources. Right. So USA had like loads of scissors, loads of paper, right, and you had to like everyone in the thing had to make certain shapes out of the paper they had and the card they had and the scissors and everything, and it had to be pretty good, and then you'd sell it to the teacher at the front, and the whole thing was who could make the most money by the end of the lesson.
That sounds like a good lesson. Yeah, I didn't do anything like that ever.
It was sick.
Yeah, literally, I did art once, and it was like, and like it was cool just having some bits and bobs. Like I remember this one where it was like it was some kind of clay thing, and you had to make a. It wasn't clay. It was almost like a thing that you cut a shape into, and then you made your own like stamp, but it's like a massive like stamp, and I can't remember the name for it. And that was like really cool. So I remember I did like my nan's face. and I did this like portrait of my nan's face. That's hilarious. But she had like a bit of like you know, like an old person, like a bit of like a chin that like hangs down a little bit and that. But I did this like, you know, this thing, and I put that on and everything, and it looked like this crazy old lady like thing, and like had it as a stamp. And I remember like real weird like taking it to my nan, like, oh yeah, I did you this picture, and she was just like,
Did she like it?
No, she didn't like it. I did like the double chin and it was like an old wrinkled face. You know what I mean?
Oh no!
And I did it too realistic.
You basically drew Jabba the Hutt and then gave it to your nan and said, "Here you go now."
Yeah, so that's the one that comes to mind for me.
Cool,
but
dude, this lesson I was talking about gets even cooler, right? Because it was like it wasn't
the Buddha one or the
geography one,
right?
Where we assign countries.
Mate, we never did anything like that. I swear.
What school did you go to, man?
Haygrove.
Yeah. They changed up their stuff, man.
They had like a different head and everything by the time they went. You had like a female head, didn't you?
It was old school.
Yeah.
Apparently,
it was called Mr. Ward. Did you ever have Mr. Ward?
No, we had Miss Calum.
Mrs. Calum?
Miss Calum.
Oh, right. I was going to say.
Tallulah was saying that the old part of Haygrove, the old building, has all been demolished in that now as well.
So that's all gone. They're building like an AstroTurf. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you were there, did they have when you started in year 7? Did they have the old building still?
Yeah. I learned in all the old buildings. The new stuff only got built after I joined.
Right.
Or after I left. Sorry.
So they demolished the old building after you left.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay. So you've never. So you used to walk the same corridors that we did.
Yeah.
Those.
My picture was up in the corridors.
If corridors could tell, if corridors could tell stories, eh?
Yeah.
Your picture was up in the corridor.
Yeah,
mine was because I was on the rugby team.
Yeah, me too. But I only did one game. It was the game where they took the photo.
Typical jammy. Jammy Drew.
No,
but I was also.
I was on a couple of those, and then I think my friend Joe also told me that one of me and him was like on big scale in the corridor or something. Because
was this after you left?
His mum is like someone that works in the office. Yeah, after I left. So it was like a photo of us at prom.
That is hilarious, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this lesson, right? We could like trade with other countries and other tables for like their stuff, and it got to a point where I remember our table. Yeah, it was sick.
That really teaches you like how to like trade, and also like how like every country and everybody brings a different thing to the table, and how like if you work together, everyone profits.
Our table,
I really like that. Like there's so many lessons to take away from that. You know, our
table ended up making a deal with another table where they essentially just became our slaves. And we like bought it got to a point where they had like no resources or anything, and we just bought the rights to their table and made them work for us.
What? No, that's crazy. That just shows like almost like the where you were like kids, just like on some weird basic level, like, you know, just like humankind, how just different people are going to come up with like different weird ways of.
It was cool though, because you had people on your team that would be like, oh yeah, I'm the cutter. I cut the shapes out. Someone's drawing the shapes, and then you had the negotiators. Go to other tables and try and make trade deals.
Could you like decide to declare war on anyone?
Well, we practically owned 2 tables by the end of the game, so we essentially won the war.
I like the idea of like just like making projectiles and then just like throwing it.
I think stuff was getting stolen, which kind of
they relented,
defeated the game.
And then you would just declare yourself as emperor, emperor of the world.
It was cool though, because it would be like if you needed some card, you might trade someone one of your pencils.
Yeah.
And then they ended up needed more card, and you're like, right, if you want this card back, we want, I don't know, 4 scissors. Actually, no, but that was how the game should go, and I think it got to the point where we were like, if you want this card, every time you make 2 shapes, we want one of them. And then they couldn't make money that way, so we're like, right, we'll just buy you. Fun though, that kind of like lesson sticks out in my mind, and I was thinking, this is getting back to my original point. I can see why for a lot of teachers it is important to do all this planning, because lessons like that really stick in children's minds.
Oh, 100%. I mean? I'm like really impressed. Like listening to you saying about it, I was like really impressed. I can't remember doing anything even remotely like that in school.
Have you heard of this the school like is it I think it's called Schumacher. No, that's the thing.
It's the F1 driver, isn't it?
Michael Schumacher.
No, there's like Schumacher College which is in Dartington. But there's a type of school, and it's much more based on like practical stuff and like creativity and all of that. It's a not Schroeder College or something. It's a set of schools that are all around the UK that are run in this way, and it's way more like creative and stuff. And I like see that, and I'm like, I definitely want my kids to go to a school like that. Like that would be so cool, because it is more like a lot of artists and stuff and musicians come from like start their school in those places.
I don't think academically, I don't think I really learnt much worthwhile in school.
That's crazy.
Personally, I think the main benefit from it was developing social skills.
Right.
And I think also, when you go to like a public school, like we all did, you're exposed to people from all different types of walks of life. So there were there's always going to be kids in your class and in your year that come from council estates, but there's also going to be kids in your year that parents are doctors or lecturers and stuff like that. And I think it's really good to be able to develop the skills to A, treat everybody equally, and B, get used to speaking to people from very different walks of life. I think that's really important. So it's like, regardless of who you're talking to, you can have a good conversation with them.
It essentially puts you into like a little world, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't through that and through you developing like that, you're never going to feel like put somebody into like a category. Something like that. That's one thing. I'm actually very, very pro private school, but I almost think my one fear of like private school or something like that is almost like that. Then the kid, obviously, if you go to a private school, your parents must be like pretty wealthy. So then it's like, would there be like some sort of like stigma, and this isn't through any of the fault. This isn't through any fault of the kids that would go to the private school, but would they almost think that like, I don't know how to communicate with like, say, like a somebody that comes from like a council estate background in a public school, because they might think of them as like very different.
I remember my dad said as well, like back in the day, even in Cannington, like there was Brimore School, which was it was a boarding school as well,
all boys school as well.
All boys school, and
Jake
when he went,
he
I remember your brother like really loved it there and everything. And it seems like there wasn't so much of a division like when I was growing up in Cannington all these years later. But my dad was saying that they, like people like the guys from Cannington who didn't go to Brimore, it was like there was this massive division. They'd always be fighting, and like there would always be like there was that thing of like, oh, it's just the private guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was so much. Well, it wasn't like we saw Brimore guys walking past like when I was like younger, and they'd just be like, right, it's like, so it wasn't really like that. But apparently back in the day, it really was.
I can think of so many people in my year that I like got on with, and if I actually stop to think about it, like they're very different people from all different, as I said, different backgrounds, very different families, different walks of life. But I got with every of them all the same. Yeah, because I got them pretty much.
It's a massive important skill to have in it. Those social skills,
social adaptability, I guess.
Like you say, it puts you into like a little world before you're allowed out in the big world.
Yeah, like everything is like you're practicing relationships,
how to overcome problems, how to overcome situations, arguments, all these kind of stuff.
Negotiations, compromise. How to become like a good friend to people, and you're developing that as a kid, and sometimes you and your mates might fall out over something silly, but then by the time you're an adult, you wouldn't ever fall out over something like that. And also it's like, as I said, practicing like relationships, because in like a public school, boys and girls are mixed, so there's going to be natural like flirtations and little things and stuff, and then by the time you're in secondary school, it's almost like preparing you for later on in life, isn't it? When you actually are going to be in a more serious relationship and things like that. But I can't think of anything. If you like put me on the spot and said like, is
cooking
there anything
was always
really cooking?
Yeah, I used to love cooking classes.
I didn't even find anything from that.
So the cooking classes, and also like the textiles, like anything where there was some kind of practical application. Mate, how am I forgetting? Actually, I got an A in resistant materials, it was called, which was like DT, and I built a guitar, and just that whole process, cutting up, like researching that, and having like all these tools.
I remember
that
well. I remember
to be able to do all that. I used to love DT. That was amazing.
I loved history,
all the practical stuff.
I absolutely loved history. I quite enjoyed science.
Bunsen burners.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed, and also we were in the same class, weren't we? Me and a couple of other of our like sort of good friends, and I was in history with Josh. So that was pretty cool. Like, I used to really enjoy history. I enjoyed English as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed English.
But at the same time, as I said, I can't think of anything that like major. I've taught myself. I've taught myself far more than I ever learned at school.
One major debate I remember we had in primary school, and this must have been in the same year where we had like the Buddha statue thing. And we would have debates, and one of the debates was about the song Pumped Up Kicks, and whether that was like okay and everything. And another debate we had was, is rap real music?
Right.
Which I just think is a really interesting concept now that, I'm 18, I've now got a rap show
on Aspen Waite Radio.
And I think those sort of lessons are important to really teach you how to free think.
Yeah.
And take other people's opinions on and everything like that, you know?
Yeah. Debating.
Yeah, for sure.
Masturbating.
Sure.
You could call it. You could call it masturbating. I've got a nice little fact for you guys here. Because I just didn't know this, and I thought this was fascinating. So I say this to my phone. There was a lady called Judith Love Cohen, right? And she was the lady who helped create the abort guidance system, which ended up rescuing the Apollo 13 astronauts. That lady went into labour the same day that she created that system, right? Well, no, sorry, she came up with that she went into labour the day that these astronauts, ended up having all their crisis and needed to be saved. She took a printout of the problem she was working on to the hospital, and mid-labour called her boss to tell him she had worked out the problem, which ended up saving the astronauts.
Whoa.
That woman went on that day to give birth to Jack Black.
What? To Jack Black? I just got a shiver.
Yeah.
I love that.
How amazing is that?
Jack Black.
That's awesome.
Obviously, I'm a massive Tenacious D fan, big fan of Jack Black. I think he's a genius, a hilarious guy. And I think, to be such a good comedian and musician, I really don't think you can understate the genius of that. Although he would never even almost show it to the world, that guy is a genius. And I just think that almost how cool is that bit of trivia? So his mum was like this.
What a successful woman.
Yeah. To come up with that literally saved lives, and obviously must have been a genius, an absolute genius in her own right, to be able to even come up with this system that was incorporated into the spaceship. And then she was even while she was in labour giving birth to Jack Black, she was still
thinking
working
about it.
Oh, that's cool.
There are levels of donnage in the world, and that woman is high level donnage.
High level don.
So I just thought that was an amazing.
Femidon.
That woman is a femidom. I read that and I was like, what? I was like, that's so cool. Got to share that with the world. So shout out to that woman. Shout out
to Jack Black as well.
Man, definitely. This is now Last Goodbye by Jeff Buckley. But not for us, but unfortunately for Jeffrey. Rest in peace, Jeff Buckley. Drowned back in, I want to say, 97. Yeah, I know.
That got a bit dark.
I know it did, didn't it? A bit, yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, and
Friend
weirdly,
of the pod.
Did you know that he had a phobia of drowning?
Water.
Oh, that's sad.
He had a phobia of drowning, and several of his songs are written about his fear of drowning.
Whoa!
And he ended up drowning. And
oh my!
Some people think it might have been suicide, but most people think it was an accident. So most people think that he went out drinking.
Yeah.
And then went into the sea late at night for a swim, probably got caught in a rip current or something like that, got dragged under. And for anybody that's ever been in a rip current, even if you're a very, very capable swimmer, it's very hard to make it to the surface because you're essentially these ridiculously strong currents are just constantly pulling you under. And then imagine if it was night, the disorientation, you probably wouldn't even know if you were swimming towards the seabed or the surface by the end because everything's just black. Mix that with being drunk.
Yeah.
So, rest in peace, Jeff Buckley. Both him and his father, Tim Buckley, absolutely legends of the music scene. This is a beautiful song, yeah. This is Last Goodbye. Check it out and stick around. We'll be back after this, baby.
Do either of you know how, rocket gets back after, landing on the moon?
Don't they, Well, the rocket itself doesn't land on the moon, does it?
When people go on there, it does.
A pod
pops off.
And
well, then something's got to come get them.
Oh, how?
I don't know exactly.
The people that land on the moon aren't just still there.
No. And then I think the pod can move, and then I think it reconnects with the ship again, and then they go back down to Earth.
Magnets.
But then I think the NASA ships are a one-trip only ship, aren't they? This is one of the reasons why Elon Musk's ships that he's coming up with for SpaceX are so amazing because they're you'll be able to take off and then land again from space and then take off multiple times.
But if it's that's what I don't get. If it's a one-trip only thing, how does it get back? How do they get back?
Well, no, because I think it has parachutes and stuff on the board, so it's it re-enters the Earth's surface and then it's monitored and tracked by NASA.
No, but I mean when they're on the moon,
and then it just randomly lands on the sea, but it's being almost followed by, and then they just get them. They get them out of the sea.
Because it orbits the moon, right? And that's how they.
Yeah.
Does it just do they send another one that doesn't stop?
No. So the guy was Fairport was talking about this the other day, wasn't he? About that song he wrote about the moon. So Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong were the first people on the moon. So when they like deployed a pod, and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, it's mine and Drew's aliases, landed on the moon and went for a little walk. Went for a little walk
on
and
the
then
moon.
Meanwhile, the guy that was piloting the shuttle, I can't remember his name, he did a lap of the moon, and then because the song the guy in Fairport was talking about how
when he goes onto
amazing
the dark side of the moon,
because obviously he was the first man ever to see the dark side of the moon, and nobody ever knew what it was, because it's the same part of the moon that's always facing us.
So there was someone on the ship controlling stuff still.
So he basically did like a lap of the moon, and then came back around, and then the pod came up, reattached, then they go back into the Earth's surface, and then it's like they basically do damage control. And then it's like,
because a lot of the breakup is when it goes into like the layer of the ozone and then the atmosphere, and it's all like burning up.
Yeah, because it's like crazy re-entering and exiting the atmosphere. It's very dangerous, and it's like extreme heat and everything like that.
That was what's so good at seeing the rocket go up, and it was so precise that there was just this thing that it could land on. I remember Craig was showing it when we came down actually, and you could watch it go out and everything, but then it went up into space, and then it could so precisely come down that it came back into the atmosphere, didn't burn up in the atmosphere, and landed on this just small little thing out in the middle of the ocean. It was like, whoa,
it's crazy.
So precise, and that's like saying the technology is amazing now, like
definitely.
that they can be reused. Like,
I think what baffled me about it is when it goes up, it loses parts of the ship, right?
Yeah,
bits come off.
It does happen sometimes, I think. Yeah, because
deliberately. Like the bottom of the ship,
I think you're right.
Detaches.
I think you're right.
Breaks off.
They essentially like lose the dead weight.
If you think about it, when they get into space, they wouldn't have to redo that process, because, like I say, they don't actually land on the moon with the ship, so they wouldn't have to relaunch the ship. It's just like in space, in the atmosphere, go around the moon and then come back to Earth. So it's all just up. So they only do one launch, if you know what I mean.
I just find it crazy how that little pod can like reattach itself.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I have to do some research, man. See how
so like a moving target, and they've got to like reattach right to the door or something.
Very precise.
Mental. We'll have to check that out next week, and I'll come with answers for you.
That was Show Me How to Live by Audioslave. Rest in peace, Chris Cornell. Rest in peace, everyone. And before that, rest in peace, Jeff Buckley. You are listening to Pandora's Box on Aspen Waite Radio. I'm your host, as always, Obadiah Pennywhistle. In the studio with me is Mr. Cello. And Senoro. Signore Glockenspiel. Glockenspiel. It's that time of the week where I give you some of my favourite quotes that I found in the last week. So the first one, an absolutely hell of a good quote by Nikola Tesla, rest in peace.
I love him.
One of the greatest minds of the 20th century. Antisocial behaviour is a trait of intelligence in a world full of conformists. Good one. So remember that. So, if you believe in something and you know something to be true, just because everybody else in the room isn't saying something about it, don't be afraid to speak up. You'll be the brave one for doing so, Let me find some others. Oh, this is a good one. Once you've accepted your flaws, no one can use them against you. I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because it's like when you're in denial of your flaws, that's when it's just like that. It's not when you're not seeing clearly, and people can be like,
or almost like you're touchy about them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
and then you're like, no, I'm not. And then it's like,
and stuff.
And then it's almost like a bit awkward if you're in a room with somebody and they're denying something that's obviously true.
Sure.
Whereas if you admit it, it's like it's not a big deal. We all have our flaws. That's the thing.
Yeah, and then
so it's not actually a big deal, but you
use it against you. No one can trigger you about it and stuff.
Sure.
As well.
If you can make a joke about your own flaws, or at least accept them. Then
big step.
Yeah, then it's almost like you've taken control of that flaw.
Yeah.
Rather than acting like it doesn't exist, which is a big problem,
Because then it could control you a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah. I like this one. This is from Renaissance Periodization, which is a account I follow on Instagram. Your competition isn't other people. Your competition is your procrastination, your ego, the unhealthy food you constantly consume, the knowledge you neglect to learn, the negative behaviour that you continue to nurture.
Oh, that's a powerful one. That's a kick right in the balls for me.
And then right at the end in big right letters, compete against that, my friend. Not against other people.
Oh, say that one again, man.
Your competition isn't other people. Your competition is your procrastination, your ego, the unhealthy food you constantly consume, the knowledge you neglect to learn, the negative behaviour you continue to nurture. Compete against that, my friend. That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my favourite.
That's a good one. That's my fave. That's my fave. I've got one or two more. As I said, this one's a little bit of more of a long-winded one. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Bear with me. Oh, where is it? Bear with me, fellas. I can't find it.
Go on forever.
But that did remind me about something actually really cool, though, because I scrolled past something. And that is unlikely simultaneous historical events.
Oh.
And this is one thing I think, because it's like there are certain things like this, unlikely simultaneous historical events, which sort of boggle the mind, because in your head you don't really think that would have been the case. For example, remember we talked about it a little bit before, Drew, I think ages ago, like before Bullwinkle even worked on Aspen Waite Radio, and it was we talked about how Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPad than she did to the building of the pyramids. That's a fascinating one. That's a fascinating one.
That's mental,
isn't it?
And
that what was another one? Dinosaur, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, lived closer to the evolution of a chicken than he did to the evolution of the first dinosaur. That's a great one. That's a great one. But some of the ones I've got down here is Spain was still a fascist dictatorship when Microsoft was founded.
Spain was still
a fascist dictatorship when Microsoft was founded. There were no classes in calculus in Harvard's curriculum for the first few years because calculus hadn't even been discovered yet. When the pyramids were built, woolly mammoths were still alive. The last use of the guillotine in France was the same year that Star Wars came out. Which is cool, because you think of death, you think of like execution by guillotine as a very ancient thing, whereas like, I mean, everybody knows about Star Wars.
Oh, these are cool. I like these.
Oh, good, aren't they? Oxford University was built 300 years before the foundation of the Aztec Empire in South America. That's a good one, isn't it? Especially for literally probably the world's most famous university, which today is still going strong. But it was founded 300 years before the Aztecs even became an empire.
That is mad.
That's a good one, isn't it? That's a good one.
Dude, this reminds me of something I saw this week.
Yeah.
That was this blew my mind. And I'm so glad that I've been reminded of this. Did you know that sharks are older than trees?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
Do you know how mental that is?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sharks were around before any trees on the world.
Yeah.
They survived all 5 major extinction events.
Mass extinctions, yeah.
Whoa.
They've on the whole they've remained like pretty much unchanged. Obviously there aren't the same species around as there were back then, but if you had bad vision and you looked at like a shark from say the Pleistocene era and then like a shark from say the Jurassic era and then from like the Eocene epoch and then to today, they would be shark species that were very, very hard to distinguish.
Dude, it's mental. They're so ancient that you can't even like comprehend it. Were they around like before there was even like land?
What do you mean before there was land?
Well, if there was no trees, I was wondering if
I can't remember.
The Earth was solely just water.
Yeah, there would have been land, but
yeah.
I don't know.
So I can't remember off the top of my head, and this is a really good thing actually for me to look up. I don't think this is the case. I don't think that there was a time where the world was just solely a water planet.
If there was no ice, then the whole world would be water, right? If all the ice melted,
I'm not sure if the whole world would be if it wasn't for any ice.
That's interesting.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm certainly not saying that's not.
I feel like it would for some reason. I feel like it was that way for a period of time.
But life started in the ocean, and there was life for millions of years in the ocean before there was anything on land. Now, I'm pretty sure that the first ever animal that came out of the sea onto land was a type of invertebrate, like an insect-like creature that lived in the sea that used to scuttle around the land. But the animal that all terrestrial animals, so just anything that lives on land, have evolved from, our common ancestor. And when I say common ancestor, I'm talking about everything on land. So everything on land has a common ancestor. And when I say everything, I mean birds, dinosaurs, us, everything has a common cats, whatever, has a common ancestor, and that would be an amphibian. The first ever amphibious creature that one day just developed the ability to crawl out of the ocean. And and that's the first thing that, like I say, basically amphibians evolved from fish.
Yeah.
So an amphibian evolved, so like a fish started evolving more and more. I guess it was like feeding across the shoreline. For some reason, it was more and more advantageous of it to be closer and closer to the shore. Eventually, over hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, it eventually had the ability to temporarily come out of land. Then, as evolution started doing its thing, there was probably a branch off of that started spending more and more time on land. From amphibians, reptiles evolved. From reptiles, mammals and birds evolved. So we all have a common ancestor going back to amphibians.
Them frogs.
So they're like in terms of like the oldest things. I think the first thing was like an invertebrate. And we talked a little bit before when we were talking about we did a show on like what I thought were the most fascinating creatures that ever existed, going back right to the dawn of the planet. And I talked about giant sea scorpions. So there would have been a time that fish hadn't even evolved, and it would have just been invertebrate, like insect-like creatures that were like sort of like swimming around the ocean. Then fish evolved, then amphibians, then reptiles, then mammals, then birds evolved from reptiles. So we all go back to amphibians. So we're like one of the newest big genuses, really. So like Mammalia, mammals, whether it's bears, us, apes, cats, like we are one of the newest around. And obviously, as most people know, I think by this point, during the dinosaur period, there weren't any mammals around that were sort of like bigger than at most like a badger, like a modern day badger, because it was almost like the way that like the animal kingdom works and evolution works is like everything fills a category and a niche category, and obviously all of those categories had already been filled by a dinosaur. So it almost like mammals wouldn't have even been able to ever evolve past that, because anytime anything got bigger than that, it would have probably just gotten eaten by a dinosaur. Do you know what I mean? There were already apex predators. There were already like so many different species of apex dinosaur, whether you want to talk about like Utahraptor, which was basically like a giant raptor, all the different massive carnivorous dinosaurs. You got Carcharodontosaurus, which means shark-toothed lizard. You got Tyrannosaurus Rex, king of the lizards. You got Giganotosaurus, which was another one, which was like the same size as like a T-Rex, if not a little bit bigger. You got Spinosaurus, which everyone is like a really famous one nowadays. There were so many apex dinosaur predators. There just wasn't room for the mammals to fill that. That's why it was, from our point of view, the K2 extinction, which was the massive extinction event where the asteroid hit the planet about 66 million years ago, was really the best thing that could have ever happened from a mammal's point of view.
Yeah.
Because it wiped out the big dinosaurs and left all these niche categories to be filled. So then mammals started naturally filling them, which is so cool, isn't it? And by that point, most of the dinosaurs that did survive had already started evolving into what we would consider nowadays more like bird-like creatures. So by the time just before the K2 extinction, a lot of dinosaurs had started to evolve into basically almost like crossovers between birds and dinosaurs. So they would have had feathers, would have been able to fly, their snouts were becoming like longer and more like needle-like teeth rather than like big, what you would think about as more of like a reptilian teeth, like nowadays, like like a crocodile or something like that, or like a big lizard. So yeah, we just like fill loads of categories, and the dinosaurs that were left over that were more bird-like by that point went more and more down that evolutionary route.
Did all dinosaurs like have eggs? Like, is that when they get So none like it is only mammals that give birth to like live young. Like, no, not live young. I think that there were. I think some. Let me just say. I think isn't that what makes a mammal a mammal?
No, it's one of the things.
Yeah, one of the things.
But there are some times in nature where something could, like for example, a platypus is considered a mammal that gives birth to an egg, but it's the only mammal that does so. There are also some, for example, fish and reptiles that do give birth to live young, but they usually give birth to eggs. So I'm pretty sure that there were some aquatic marine reptiles I think, that did give birth to live young, but obviously, as the name suggests, they are reptiles. But in most cases, I'm trying to think actually, I don't think, just off the top of my head, I don't think any dinosaurs gave birth to live young. I think all dinosaurs laid eggs. That's obviously that's without me fact checking it, but from the knowledge I already have, I want to say that all dinosaurs gave birth. Laid eggs that then have obviously hatched and grew. But I'm pretty sure that there were some marine reptiles, things like certain plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, things like that gave birth to live young. And I think in a sea environment, you can see why that would be the case.
It's really interesting that we get that what you said about the different species that, or like in the timeline, and like reptile, like we do all evolve from reptiles. So like that, when people say about like the reptile part of your brain, it is literally ingrained.
It's not like some. It's not like some quacky thing. There is almost like a reptilian part of our brain, because we evolved from reptiles. We evolved from reptiles, and obviously the very first mammals that ever evolved, you'd have probably been able to see that more obviously. I think the first ever mammal was like a small rodent.
Yeah, that's why, like a water vole.
Yeah, it was like a small rodent-like mammal, and it was like evolved from some reptile one day. But I mean, there are benefits. There are benefits to being cold-blooded and benefits to being warm-blooded. But there are a lot of benefits to being warm-blooded. We're faster. The only, the downside is we need to eat more often. Our metabolisms are faster, but our brains work faster, our bodies work faster. Things like that,
The only other thing I was going to ask from just what you were talking about, so sharks being the only thing that survived all of those extinctions, obviously there were other like aquatic life and everything in the sea, so why is it sharks are the only ones that survived?
Because a bit like what we were saying about everything that's in the food chain has to fill a category. The sharks category has always maintained. There's never been. Do you know what I mean? It's like with the reason why animals traditionally die out, is because the role that they're filling is no longer required. So, say for millions of years, say like an animal has developed to flourish as like a predator in like an area of the world that has like, say, like a hot climate. Well, if for some reason the climate of that area is starting to go cold, or because the food source that animal is specialized to hunt over millions of years for some reason isn't around anymore, whether it's like that itself is extinct or whether it's moved to a different part of the world, that suddenly is like left without a category to fill. So it will just slowly die out.
I guess they're quite sharks are quite
adaptable,
broad, where some can live in deep waters, some can live in shallow waters, some can live in lakes.
They're very basic.
Some can live in hot water, some can live in cold water. Like they are very adaptable.
Because I always thought
they're very basic
the
and
food chain as well. Like you said, if something doesn't get filled, something dies out. But I understand it is like all connected. So I would have thought at some point that would happen with sharks, because like they would almost like eat all the.
I guess there's like ones, maybe the ones that survived certain events might have just been eating krill. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I mean, do you
know what I mean? It's like, well, if everything else dies out, like, and they're like this predatory...
Yeah, but the thing is, there'll always be something that will maintain some sort of balance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, there's several reasons why, for example, like, I say, like, a great white shark wouldn't be able to just, like, eat everything in the ocean. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, there are certain things that would be too big for a great white shark to eat. There are certain things, like we've talked about killer whales before, there are certain things that great white sharks are scared of that would almost like keep great white sharks in check. Then there's almost like the adaptability and the evolution of the animals that they're hunting themselves. So like, there's a good chance there's not a great white shark that's attacking a seal can't guarantee that it's going to eat that seal. Yeah. Because seals have obviously evolved very well to get away from sharks. So even though sharks are terrifying, fast, master predators, sometimes they get away. And if the longer that a predator goes without food, the weaker it becomes, there's the less and less chance it is that it's going to actually then find prey.
You say as well, like with the question of why there was still food around, I guess in every different extinction event there would have been different ones that would have survived it, but they might have just got wiped out at a different point.
And you've got to think about,
there's always stuff around.
So say
sharks are the only ones that have lived through it all.
And it's like, say, but obviously shark species themselves do die out, and obviously Megalodon would be like a really good example of that. So you'd almost think like, well, how did a Megalodon die out? Because it sounded like the most like terrifying and impressive shark of all time. And it's like, well, the reason why we know Megalodons died out is almost because
complacent. Roman Empire.
Just like the Roman Empire, mate. It was got fat, lazy.
On the metaverse.
Yeah. But it's almost like, so like over time, and you can see how it started off as a benefit, but it's like, so imagine you had something that maybe once was about the size of a great white shark, and then it was like kicking ass in the ocean, and then it started evolving to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And in your head, you're like, well, surely that just means it's going to be more and more and more dominant. And like, well, yeah, it does. But then it gets to the point where it's so massive, it needs to eat so much food to survive. And that's not too much of a problem at the time, because there were whales that were like similar sizes to like modern whales in the ocean at the time. So like that's almost like a banquet for this giant evil shark. Obviously not evil. I'm like making it, turning it into a villain. But from the whale's point of view, imagine a shark that was like pretty much like a great white shark, but was like way, way bigger, right? You know, like daddy's home.
Yeah.
That would have been terrifying to like a whale that was like a modern sized whale. But you know, say the Megalodon would be cruising through the oceans, you know, feasting on these whales. Well then, A, you've got to hope that the whales don't evolve to then go into a different climate or something like that. And B, a super predator whale evolved after the Megalodon evolved. So the ancestor of the modern sperm whale, which we call Livyatan Melvillei, evolved, and it was essentially like a similar size to a modern day sperm whale, but way more angry, with way bigger teeth, and with a bad attitude. And then that directly would have competed with Megalodon for food. And much like the competition between great whites and killer whales nowadays, Livyatan Melvillei, as a whale, would have 99% been, you know, much more intelligent, would have been more resourceful, probably sometimes worked cohesively with other whales, you know, like we know that sperm whales do today. So I mean, that instantly just put the Megalodon in you know, in dire straits, essentially. I think as well, I might have read something about how like Megalodon were adapted to, this is just off the top of my head, so this might not be correct. I think they were like adapted to living in like hotter water, and at the same time that like Livyatan Melvillei came along, so it was almost like a double whammy. There was like Livyatan Melvillei came along and was like, you know, out-competing Megalodon for food. And in some cases, they were probably preying on each other every now and again as well. Because, you know, they were like massive, brutal beasts, and they probably...
Fighting.
And they both probably...
death.
Yeah, and they both probably had success at different times. But I think when you also factor in that I think that they were adapted to living in warmer waters, and then it's at the time where they sort of died out was more like the world was going through a colder stage. Might have even been the Ice Age. I want to say
we're still technically in the Ice Age, aren't we?
Yeah, officially.
That's so cool.
Apparently,
that's so cool. But yeah, that's why Megalodon died out anyway.
That's so cool about the Livyatan Melvillei.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I didn't know about that.
It's named that because Melvillei was the guy that writ Moby Dick. And the Leviathan was like the giant beast in the Bible that was written about in the Bible. So
Leviathan, I really like that name.
Yeah,
Melvillei,
man.
Yeah, we listen to a track now anyway. This is Hocus Pocus by Focus. Oh baby,
there it is.
All right, time to get a little bit crazy. Have you ever had a Schwartz burger? Oh, mate. I told Josh about it, and Josh said he's heard about it by several people before, and he was like, man, I need to try a Schwartz burger. I was like, mate, you need to try a Schwartz burger. Man. They're like, mate, you can basically build any burger you want. Like literally, can't you? There's like unlimited. So like,
I would drive to Bath right now
just to get one.
Yeah.
So like, they have loads of options anyway. You don't have to custom build one, but you can custom build one if you want. So you could have anything you want, any sauce, any extra, whatever. Like, so you just build like your altar.
That sounds good.
So I had
Where is it in Bath?
Just like in the city centre, right in the city centre.
I didn't see it when I went up there. I didn't like see a burger place. I'm quite sad about it now.
Literally this tiny little thing
small.
on the corner.
Oh, really?
So you go in there and you can see them cooking it and everything. It's like really tiny little thing. You just go in and then you collect it from outside on the wall. Like, yeah.
Dude, I feel like this is like an episode of Regular Show.
It's like a green. It's like a green. They're sort of like their colour scheme is green with then like yellow writing. So, and it's like that obviously all outside, so you need to sort of look out for that. If you see a sign sticking out, it has a sign sticking out of the wall and it says Schwartz Bros, and it's like a green sign with yellow writing. I want to say maybe that the yellow writing's got like a little red outline as well. Maybe.
Dude, this reminds me of like a Regular Show episode where Mordecai and Rigby, the best burger in the world, comes to the park. And they have to do work and they can't do it, so they holograph themselves, and it's so good that their holographs come and try and kill them. They have to fight to the death for the burger.
Oh man, that sounds
cool
good.
show. But oh man, I'm gonna go somewhere for food now.
I had a half-pounder garlic mayo burger with like vegetables and that, and it was and the garlic mayo burger was so good. And Drew had a quarter-pounder bacon cheeseburger. Oh mate.
But it wasn't. I thought when you got yours, I was like, oh, mine's gonna be so much smaller than that. But then when I got it, it was like it was still big, like a big old boy, and I was like, boom.
And even like the bun's delicious. They like toast the bun. And it's just, you know, when it's like the bun's like just a little bit crunchy, not too much. It's still soft inside, but like it's a bit
crisp.
It's almost got like grill marks on the top of the burger and like under the bun.
Have you ever heard that real funny fact about McDonald's?
No.
Where they were like under pressure from Burger King, and they released the third pounder. It was like a burger, right? They released the third pounder as like their next big thing.
I would eat that.
And it didn't catch on, and they had to get rid of it because people in America didn't understand that third pounder was bigger than quarter pounder. They thought like a quarter pounder was bigger because it had like a 4 instead of a 3.
But like it's just in between half and a quarter.
They must have just thought the 4 was bigger than 3.
They should have called it the big pounder.
Yeah,
and then it would have been like the big pounder. And that would have been
big
like
daddy.
It's staggering, like how fucking dumb some Americans seem. Like, have you ever watched those videos of like somebody going around asking like Americans about geography? And stuff, and it's actually like outrageous. Staggering. I think they have like the worst geography of like any fucking. There's like some of it, and it was like, "Where's Kuwait?" And they were like, "I don't know, Arkansas." And I was like, "What?" It's like one of the biggest, wealthiest countries in like the whole freaking Middle East, and you think it's like some tiny town.
Well, they'd ask
in
them like,
Arkansas.
"Where's England?" They'll point to Brazil.
Yeah, like weird stuff, man. It's like how the fuck is your geography that bad? Like
mental.
That was Dutch prog legends Focus with their most famous track, Hocus Pocus. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of another session here this week in Pandora's Box. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we love every single one of yours. Every single one of yours. Go on our YouTube, subscribe. Go on our Spotify. Please follow us. And we'll see you next week again for some more Pandora's Box.